So I grew up in a Christian household. My dad's actually a preacher, and so I'm a preacher's kid, which all that meant is I was a bad kid most of my life. But anyway, I was homeschooled up until junior high, and in the 8th grade, I went back to a local school because I wanted to play sports. I was into baseball, football, all that stuff. And I was on the football team, and I remember about 2 weeks into school, we were going to have our first game. And so I was all excited because I got to wear my football jersey to school that day. And so I got up that morning, and I ran in the closet, and I grabbed some jeans and put them on. I grabbed a T-shirt and put it on. I tucked it in, put my football jersey on. I was so excited to get to go to school and show off my football jersey, so excited to play that night. And so I get to school, and I'm walking to my locker. And remember, I'm the new kid. I had been homeschooled up to that point for a long time. I didn't really know anybody, didn't really have any friends, was kind of insecure, just trying to fit in. But I noticed people started paying attention to me as I was walking down the hall. It was kind of weird. I walked by this group of kids, and all of them were standing in a circle, and I saw them start whispering. And then one of the kids came up to me as I was opening my locker, and he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, man, nice jeans." I said, "Well, thank you. I just got these jeans. I went shopping. Thank you for noticing how cool I am," right? And all day long, like first period, second period, third period, fourth period, lunch, people were coming up to me, people I didn't know, and saying, "Hey, we really like your jeans." I'm like, "Oh, thank you. Thank you." I was very kind back. I remember after lunch, some older women came up to me, some 13-year-olds, right? They said the same thing, and I was like, wow. I'm like, these like have magic powers. I love this. And so, man, by the end of the day, I was on cloud 9. I was feeling really good. Like I'd gotten all this positive affirmation from strangers all day. Everybody thought I was cool. Girls were talking to me. Like, come on, it was a great day. Now I get to go play football. And so I go down to the field house where we were going to change into our football gear, and I walk up to my locker, and I unbutton my pants, and I'm taking them off to put on my football pants, and I notice on the inside there's this tag that says CHIC, chick. I know that's pronounced chic, but I thought it said chick at the time, and so I said, "Chick!" And I mean, it was like a bomb went off in that locker room because everybody started laughing. And remember, these are junior high boys, right? The guy next to me goes, "You mean you didn't know?" I said, "Know what?" And he picked him up and showed me, and real big on the back, it said CHIC, chick, across the butt. Those were my mom's jeans, right? And so all day long, I had been wearing these jeans that were way too tight, because apparently my mom accidentally put them in my closet. And so when I got up that morning and put them on, and so I'm walking around with, an advertisement on my butt, and everybody's making fun of me. So all of that positive affirmation was not positive affirmation. I was getting made fun of. And what made it worse is this, chick jeans, that's the Kmart brand jeans. They had a commercial that was around in the 90s where, the theme song is "You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman." You guys know that song, right? So I don't know who started it, but one of the guys started singing, "You make me feel," and all of a sudden 60 junior hires are serenading me in the locker room. "You make me feel like a natural woman," right? And so for the next year, I was picked on every single day at school. I was called chick boy. There was not a class that went by where I didn't get picked on and made fun of. And the bullying kind of intensified over time. I was not always this size. When I was a little 11-year-old, I was pretty skinny, not super strong. I was getting picked on hardcore, to the point that I thought I was going to go crazy at this school. Now, I tell you that because here's what. Let me just show you a picture. You got a photo? Can we throw that photo up there? Okay. This is an old family photo. I am the little guy with curly hair, okay? That's my dad. That's my mom. That's my ugly brother behind me. That's Emily's dad, Ginger and Alicia, my siblings. I was 3 or 4 years old in this photo. Now, what the kids at school that were picking on me and bullying me and mistreating me didn't know is that when I was this age, that's the age I was when I started getting sexually molested. That's how old I was. That's a little kid, right? There was a pedophile in my neighborhood who molested his kids. His kids, older and stronger, turned around and molested other kids. I was one of those kids. There were several of them. I was severely abused, starting very early. Looking back and talking with my family, there was a marked change in my behavior around this age. But one of the things, whenever you're sexually abused, one of the lies that you begin to believe about yourself is that you are inherently bad, that you are dirty, that you are unlovable, that if anybody really, really knew the real you or what really happened to you, nobody would love you. And so I couldn't even articulate that at that age, right? But those are the emotions that I started to feel. And whenever you're that age, the things you start believing about the world affects your whole worldview. It affects the way you see yourself. It affects the way you see God. It affects the way you see people. It affects everything. And so that trauma occurred to me that young. So I'm going into this school thinking I'm unlovable, thinking that I'm bad, thinking that I'm especially somebody nobody will want to love. And then this chick jeans thing happened that on the surface is funny. But for a kid who was severely traumatized and had major issues, for him to get picked on and bullied like that, guys, you want to talk about... I thought about loading up a gun and taking it to school and killing my bullies. I thought about it. I plotted out how to do it. I thought about killing myself. It was bad. And instead of doing that, I decided, you know what? If they hate this guy that I am so much, if they hate him so much, I need to become somebody else that maybe people will like. And so I started looking around at the world around me. I started looking at the kids at my school that were kind of the most popular, kind of the most put together, it looked like. Everybody liked the most. I started looking at celebrities and pop culture, which I grew up in the 90s, so grunge music was huge. I was a huge rock fan. And so I looked at the bands that I really was influenced by. I saw Billy Joel Armstrong from Green Day touring the country, naked with just his guitar in front of him. I was like, oh, that guy's crazy, I looked at Pauly Shore, which Pauly Shore used to be cool. He's not anymore. You guys are like, who's Pauly Shore? Exactly, right? He was all into smoking weed and smoking dope and partying. I watched stand-up comics because I'm like, oh man, people like these guys. They're up on stage and they're making all these people laugh. The values I got from them, right? And so I'm like, how can I be like them? And so what I consciously chose to do at a young age is, you know what? My parents are crazy. All this Jesus stuff, that's a bunch of fairy tales. That's just a bunch of fairy tales. I want to have a great life. I don't want to be this religious person. I'm going to pursue being like these people that I see as successful. And so my behavior radically changed, guys. I started doing drugs because those are the people that I looked up to. That was what they were into. By the time I was in college, I was a full-blown drug addict. I started pretty early just smoking a little weed here and there. Then I started experimenting with other things, and man, by the time I was old enough to go to college, I seriously was doing whatever I could get my hands on. Really liked cocaine a lot, and that was prevalent at my school. And then I started thinking about, okay, I need to make a living. How can I make a living and still continue living this lifestyle? I decided that I wanted to get into the music business and into radio. And so I went to the University of Central Arkansas. I was in their mass comm program, radio, television, and film. I excelled at radio. I got some national recognition while I was in college. I got my first job in a large market in Memphis, Tennessee, which back when I got my first job in radio, I was 21 years old. Memphis, Tennessee, this was before the internet had really taken off. This was before podcasts. This was when people still listened to terrestrial radio, and that was their only source of new music. And so if you were on the radio in a city like Memphis, which is the birthplace of the blues and the home of rock and roll, great music history in their culture, you were an instant celebrity. And so I was on one of the most successful radio stations in that city at the time, and suddenly I went from being a nobody to being a somebody, I thought. And I started getting all this positive affirmation. I got free drinks at all the bars that I went to. I had a limo service that would cart me around. Everybody knew my name. Everybody knew who I was. I was able to hook up with girl after girl after girl. And that was the life that I dreamed of having. Because remember, I had seen all these celebrities, and I'm like, this is what it's all about. This is the path to fulfillment. This is the path to finally filling this hole in my heart. And you want to know what happened as I lived that lifestyle? It was fun for a while. But after about 6 months of just running full speed that direction, that stuff started not to fill me up like it did right at the beginning. And instead of just using drugs just, to kind of have fun, I started using drugs really to forget and to medicate. I realized I didn't have any real friends around me. The people that were attached to me at that point, they were just attached to me because of my social status and what I could get them, free tickets and free drinks and things like that. I didn't have any relationships. I didn't have anybody that really cared. And so I started using more. I started drinking more. I got to where I was drinking all the time to the point where I would go on the air to do my radio show. I was slobbering drunk. And my audience thought that was funny the first time. They thought it was funny the second time. They started to worry the third time. And it became very obvious that I had a problem. I ended up getting fired from that job. I got some more in other markets. I won't get into all the details of that, but it was the same old thing. I just couldn't function, and I got more and more depressed. I ended up getting a job at the Little Rock Dragway in Arkansas, my hometown. I was calling the drag races. I would work there on the weekend. I would call the races. I would get, a couple $100 for the weekend. I had a little place in Little Rock that I was staying in, very low rent, kind of a dump. I would take that couple $100, and I'm not joking, I would take $5 and set it on my coffee table. That was my food budget for the week. And that other $195, whatever I needed for gas, I would take out, but that other money, I would go and I would buy drugs every week. And this went on for a while. And I was isolated. I was alone. My $5, I would buy one burger a day off the dollar menu at the Wendy's around the corner. That's what I'd do. I'd go eat a burger once a day. I was skinny. I looked bad. And after living that way for a while, man, I just started thinking, this is absolutely terrible. I don't even want to live. I don't have any friends. I don't have any relationships. My family, they just think I'm a loser. They kind of feel like giving up on me. What am I going to do? I want to die. I just want to kill myself. And so I'm sitting on the couch having that conversation with myself. It wasn't an audible voice, okay? But there was like this inner voice. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't my head. Wasn't my imagination. There was something that said, go and get your Bible. Thought that was weird. I had a Bible. It was in my bedroom in a box. Never read it. That Bible that I had was a graduation present. When I graduated high school, my parents got me a Bible and gave it to me. I was so mad at them. Like, Seriously? Like my friends are getting trips to Cancun and like new cars, and you get me this? Seriously? I was so mad at them. I used it to roll joints when I'd run out of rolling papers, and so the front pages were all torn out because they're thin, like it worked. That's all I used it for. That was my practical application of my Bible at that point. Go get your Bible. Like, okay, that was weird. And so I get up, I go back there, and I dig this thing out. I go and sit on my couch, I set the Bible down, and for the first time in my life, I pray, like for real. I didn't really know how, but here's how it went. I said, God, if you're there, if you're really listening, I'm going to open this Bible up, and I want you to speak to me. And if you speak to me, I'll believe in you, and I'll try to make some changes. But if you don't speak to me, I'm going to go and kill myself. Amen. I didn't say amen. But that was my prayer. Like that was my prayer. And so I flopped that Bible open. And guess what I opened it up to? Psalm 73. Let me read this again. We'll have it up on the screen. It says, "Surely God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. But as for me, my feet had almost slipped. I had nearly lost my foothold, for I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. They have no struggles. Their bodies are healthy and strong. They're free from common human burdens. They're not plagued by human ills. Therefore, pride is their necklace. They clothe themselves with violence. From their callous hearts comes iniquity. Their evil imaginations have no limits." Guys, as I was reading this, you got to understand, I structured my life around this. I structured my life around this. Like, I want to be like these people. That's what drove me. That was the decision that I made. So I want to be like these wicked people, quote unquote, that my mom and dad tell me to stay away from. That's who I want to be like. That's life. That's the great life. That's the good life. That's what I want. And I'm reading this and I'm like, this has been me. And I'm just reading it and, man, just weeping as I'm reading it. As I'm reading it. He goes on, "They scoff and speak with malice. With arrogance they threaten oppression. Their mouths lay claim to heaven. Their tongues take possession of the earth. Therefore their people turn to them and drink up waters in abundance. They say, how would God know? Does the Most High know anything? This is what the wicked are like, always free of care. They go on amassing wealth. Surely in vain have I kept my heart pure and have washed my hands in innocence. All day long I've been afflicted. Every morning brings new punishments." Guys, as I'm sitting there reading this and weeping like a baby, that same voice that said, "Go get your Bible," not an audible voice. The best way I can describe it is knowledge of a voice that wasn't mine is repeating over and over, "I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you." As I'm reading this, I love you. And everything changed for Asaph. It says, when he entered the sanctuary of God. That day, I entered the sanctuary of God. And I didn't know, but my parents had been at their wits' end. And like 2 days before that, they had called all of their Christian friends together. And they all sat in a circle for like 2 hours, and they prayed together for God to do something in my life, supernatural, because they had tried everything. And then I had that happen to me. And guys, I was a skeptic. Intellectually, I could not buy this God stuff. That was just a bunch of hoo-ha crap. You know, you couldn't trust this Bible. It had been rewritten. Like, that's the kind of stuff I believed. Then that happened, and it caused there to be a change in my heart where instead of just completely rejecting the idea of a relationship with God, my heart opened a little bit. It opened a lot. And that happened, and I didn't change all at once, but it caused me to get interested in a relationship with God, to get interested in the Bible. Guys, I didn't see the Bible the same after that experience. And eventually, God connected me with a church, and that's when things really took off for me. That's when when I got those relationships with other people who were seeking God, who were able to guide me and direct me and correct me, it was that community that really made a difference in my life. And that's just been such a blessing. Oh. You know, I thought after flopping the Bible open and arriving at Psalm 73, I was like, oh, so that's how you use the Bible. And so while I was blubbering on the couch, kind of got my composure after a few minutes, I said, I'm going to try that again. Wonder what else he has to say. Open it up. Do not test the Lord your God. That's what I read. Thought, oh, I wasn't supposed to. He just let me slide that one time, right? So don't do that. I don't say that as prescriptive. That's descriptive of what happened to me. But God touched me that day. And guys, I have since gone on and I have spent more time in college than I spent in K through 12. I have some education in the Bible. I've gone back and studied it academically. I've learned the original languages it was written in. I've looked at different manuscripts. I've done all kinds of academic work at a high level with the scriptures. And I can tell you, as someone who knows more about the Bible than the average Joe, there is not a portion in this entire thing that would have spoken to me more succinctly and clearly that day than Psalm 73. And I know the thing. Okay, I've looked. There is nothing that would encapsulate my story like that. And I love the way Asaph ends because he ends talking about his relationship with God.